1 minute early. We've had some audio issues the last few, so everyone's probably like, wow, they actually started on time. Love it, guys. Welcome to Wolf Web 3. Welcome to the podcast. We've got an awesome conversation today with the Hobbyist Miner, fellow YouTuber out there, laying out the information, being educational about it. He's got very high quality content. He jumps in a lot of our Bitcoin mining spaces as well, which we certainly appreciate, and we just like picking his brain and learning about different things. We got Gabriel in the house as well, who works with Wolf. So do quick mic checks real quick, Hobbyist Miner. Or would you like us to just call you that, by the way, for the show? Is that fine? Or do you have something else?
Hobbyist is perfectly fine. It's shorter. Save some time here, just a little bit.
Amazing. We got Gabriel in the house. How's it going?
It's going good. Really excited for this conversation.
Definitely. I feel like I'm on a space right now. It's kind of fun. So listen, Hobbyist, I was going to say, I feel like this would be really good to just help contextualize the rest of the conversation moving forward, because we'll ask your thoughts on the career side of things, the Bitcoin mining entrepreneurial ventures, as well as just thoughts on Bitcoin. But I think it may be helpful to contextualize kind of how you think about the world a little bit with something that maybe the audience / me and Gabriel should know that would help contextualize the way you think about stuff, something maybe that happened early on or a thing that you were always like growing up kind of thing. Is there anything that comes to mind that would just fill in, gives a little bit of color?
Within the crypto space, correct? That's where we're going with this.
It can be. Yeah,
no, that's fine.
Be led into it or something, but
yeah. So quite a broad question, by the way. Yeah, just kind of throwing it out there. I think for me, a lot of what you'll hear today is very much coming from kind of where I started as a home miner, 3 years ago. Just starting out with a basic, simple GTX 970 graphics card, didn't financially be able to afford much. So kind of a lot of my experience is kind of pulling from that, of that journey of growth and very much a case, and as the conversation will lead to today, of taking crypto and continuing to put it to work. And you're going to hear that throughout the conversation quite a bit as we get into things today, and then taking us to where we are today, which is crazy to think. I was just talking to you about, hey, I was just at my ASIC shed working on 5 down ASICs that are down. And then actually tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., I fly out to a mining farm to do a mining farm tour. So my background of where I was 3 years ago and where I am today is just totally different. And so I'm excited to share some of that with the audience today.
Yeah, definitely. Just a few years ago, my life was entirely different. I don't know about you, Gabriel. I was not even in this world really at all. I kind of knew a couple things about finance. But 3 years ago, that was pretty much a different life.
Yeah. What were you doing before you became the Hobbyist Miner?
So I actually it's really funny. I won't make the story too long as our time is limited, but I was actually moving between homes. We had sold a home and we were moving into another home that actually got delayed 5 months. So I needed to, we were staying with my mother-in-law in her finished basement, me and my family. I have 3 kids and married, and I needed something to do to kind of fill my time, right? I couldn't really jump into a ton of hobbies, small confined space we were living in, temporary situation, really didn't know when we'd end up getting into the new home. So I just found myself spending a lot of time on YouTube, and I come from a tech background. I've been in the technology industry for over 20 years now. And so that being said, I found myself gravitating towards crypto. And that was when GPU mining was really popping off. During the last time period of really where I market is I kind of came in late, I would say. Where my mind goes is when Elon Musk was really helping to promote Dogecoin was really when I stepped into things at that time period. So not the beginning of the last bull run, but kind of right in the middle time period. So I kind of just stumbled across a few YouTube channels, Red Panda Mining, Voscoin, Bitsby Trippin, all very well established GPU mining and crypto miners, and just spent my time learning. I had time at night, kids were asleep, so I just watched and consumed content, and that kind of pulled me directly into the crypto space.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know, Cade, what are you thinking?
Yeah, dude. So I am curious. You were watching some of the content. You chose to embark on a bit of a side quest adventure. It turns into a main quest, I assume now at this point. What are some things you picked up along the way, maybe in that first year? I feel like for me, that's the most interesting, because that first year is a lot of just trying out a bunch of things, throwing a lot of paint at the wall, and testing things. But my first year in the YouTube scene was pretty memorable. So I am curious on your thoughts and how it kind of came about for you.
Yeah, so when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't have my face be seen at all. I kind of hid behind the camera, and that was entirely on purpose. During a lot of that time period of just watching content and learning from other people, I kind of wanted to. We're all human. We go ahead and make a judgment within the first 10 seconds of meeting someone, facial expressions, how they look, everything. And so for me, I was like, I'm going to hide behind the camera for at least my first year and want people to judge me based off of my content. So as I said, I couldn't afford much. It was literally like two 970s that I had, graphics cards. And so I had an iPhone 6 SE at that time, like just going back a few years ago. And I just couldn't afford anything much better, honestly. So I used that, and it was very much like, hey guys, here's my hardware, kind of talking from there. And I very much took the approach of like, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm going to learn as I go. And I think that very much attracted an audience early on in the YouTube space, because there were a lot of people that were just jumping on board, jumping, riding, looking into it, getting into that hype. So for me, my first year very much looked like, I look back and I'm like, man, camera quality is terrible. Mic quality wasn't very good. But somehow I got by, and I very much just kind of rode that wave. And with the interest in that first year, I was just, one thing I look back on, and I get it because like, I remember I couldn't really afford a ton there, was I was buying like the cheapest things possible. Like I was going out on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and like buying old HP computers that I could take apart for $25 just to use the motherboard, because I couldn't afford to buy a real mining motherboard. So it was a totally different experience thinking back to then versus where we are today.
Wow. Yeah. So what would you say? That's a really crazy, definitely resourceful. You have to be very resourceful.
Yep.
To do all that stuff.
Yep.
What would you say was there any coins or like different mining setups where you're like, wow, I just broke something. Like I'm onto something here. Was there any like particular coin? How many coins do you think you've mined? I mean, do you have any like of those ideas, those metrics?
Sure. So going back then, I couldn't afford, I didn't have any graphics cards that could support Ethereum mining, because at that point Ethereum was proof of work, and that's when I entered the space. And all these other content creators were talking about Ethereum and these 30 series or 20 series graphics cards, and everything I had was 4 gigabytes because they're the cheaper low end cards. So I didn't even have Ethereum in my crosshairs. Bitcoin was so far out of reach at that point in time, because there wasn't as much like onboarding available. It wasn't at that point, it wasn't as easy as just like picking up a Robinhood app and going buy Bitcoin, and 5 minutes later you go back to what you were doing. A lot of that stuff was getting onboarded at that time. So for me, a lot of my focus was on, like, I remember my first coins that I mined was Raven coin, which is a coin that has been around for quite a long time now, very well established. When you think of coins like Litecoin or Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, Raven coin's actually in there, but definitely not as popular. And so that's actually where I got started. And Raven coin, for those not familiar, is a coin that is not very high in price, pennies as of right now. And it has always been very high energy consumption and put out a boatload of heat. So as a home miner, that was a huge obstacle at that point in time.
Yeah. I think I've heard of it from somebody, but yeah, not quite sure. What would you say you're setting your sights on now? Are you getting, because another thing, aside from onboarding with purchasing cryptocurrencies, onboarding with ASICs is like not something that the faint of heart should be taking on, because it's more expensive, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're really going to be in a tough predicament. You've transitioned into the ASICs game?
Yeah, so I primarily started out my journey GPU mining, and full-size ASICs at that point during the last bull run, way out of reach. I mean, 15 grand minimum for these full-size Bitcoin ASIC miners for like your Bitmain Antminer, 100 terahash models. It just wasn't within my grasp. But as time transitioned and I had success on YouTube, success with partnerships and sponsorships, and we slowly started to get into the bear market, prices of ASIC hardware came down, and my success on YouTube allowed me to start to purchase a lot of these full-size ASIC miners. And then that started my journey of like, how do I manage these in a home environment? So I built a shed in my backyard and really brought my audience along that journey of, doing that and dealing with the heat and the sound, and oh my gosh, the sound. But as time went on, that grew, and I outgrew this shed, and I actually partnered with my electrician. And those of you guys that are in the mining space know your electrician is kind of your best friend, because electrical build out is one of your biggest startup costs. And so that worked out awesome. We actually, he had a shed at his property, completely gutted it, overhauled it. It's actually been through 2 iterations now, but all my ASIC miners, my full-size ASIC miners, are over there because he's not in like a traditional neighborhood. So we can get by with some of that. And yeah, that's really where I pivoted from. I've definitely taken a step back within the last few months from GPU mining because of the profitability factor. I mean, a lot of my GPUs have been off for a year at least. Just the profitability isn't there when you're kind of weighing down operating costs with electricity. So a lot of my focus has been ASIC mining. I actually was there last night installing my last ASIC that I can fit over there. I've maxed out that shed already, had a commercial service brought in for that. So yes, I've kind of very quickly gone from that 970 several years ago to now full-size ASICs that I not only run locally, but I also run at several different hosting facilities as well within the US.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and Cade, you and I were talking about the D-pins last night, like kind of talking about how that seems to be really coming up. So I was wondering if you maybe want to take the conversation there. Hobbyist, have you
Sure.
Have you done work with some of these D-pin projects? And if so, which ones, and what are your experiences with it?
Yeah, so very much my YouTube audience is a very driving factor for a lot of the projects that I get into. Coming from the GPU mining background, and having home miners as my audience, you can't pivot directly to your pro level full-size ASIC miners. It's just not obtainable for your normal individual trying to cash flow this as an objective. And so very early on, I got into some of these D-pin projects. The first one for me was originally Helium on my channel, and got into that. I lucked out at that, one, being able to get one, because I know that was a huge challenge for people at that time. And 2, I mean, that was making $15 a day for a little 20, 30 watt little miner was fantastic. Wow. So I sometimes takes things to the extreme. If you watch my channel, so like I don't just put that in a garage out back or whatever. I rented a 55-foot boom lift, mounted it to the peak of my roof, put it in my attic, and then that just snowballed into more D-pin projects. So since then on my channel, we've done Helium, Helium 5G and mobile, which I've had great success there. Getting into that early, cashed out actually about 50% of my holdings back at the all-time high back in December, which of course, me, I always roll things in, snowball things in. So like I don't pocket anything from this. I take it and I bought more miners, with that. But I've also got into GeoNet as another avenue, all mounted all around each other. I look like Doc from Back to the Future on the side of my house with all these like antennas and stuff. So those are all over there. Weather XM is another D-pin project that I've gotten into that's been mounted up there. So I've rented a 55-foot boom lift many times as I've gotten into these projects. The local rental company knows me well. And then outside of that, I've ventured into things like Demo with their setups. So I continue to keep my ear to the ground on a lot of these, because I did a great video a while back with Tech Hustler, another YouTuber in the space. And it really was, is the future of home mining D-pin? And just the barrier to entry from a profitability perspective, you can spend, a couple $100, get in on a D-pin project. And they do turn out pretty good. And the nice thing is you're not over leveraging yourself. You spend $500. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it does, fantastic. And their electric bill is not a major factor. So I'm a huge fan of D-pin. But I also recognize the fact of like D-pin projects are not it's not like you're mining Bitcoin where you're instantly looking at profit numbers and you're looking to cash out. D-pin is very much set it, forget it, let it pile up, and then look for a big pump like I did with Helium Mobile. And then that's when you go ahead and actually cash out. But there's no guarantees, as I think everyone can speak to in crypto.
Yeah, definitely.
What is the YouTube game? How does it work in the Bitcoin mining world? The YouTube is very hard to do for people who have not embarked on that journey. YouTube is very, very hard to do. I found some hacks around it where I was able to work with companies, so I didn't have to go viral and do the ad the ad money spend. I wasn't able to go that route. So I just kind of leaned into it and said, okay, I would like to get connected in the Web3 world. So I want to make videos that CEOs will watch, the founders will watch, that C-suite executives or something will watch, and to get their attention, because I'd like to work in a professional setting. And so I just did that for a few years. It didn't pay off that well. I wasn't gaining 100,000 subscribers. Like, I think you're at, let's see, hold on. I've got it pulled up here. So for people who don't know, TheHobbyistMiner is killing it on YouTube.
Thank you.
109,000 subscribers. Insane feat, dude. Like, you got the silver plaque and everything. Like, super, super legit.
Thank you.
Big shout out on that, dude. It's very hard to do YouTube. Tell me some things you picked up and things that might be helpful for people who are trying to specifically do content within the Bitcoin sphere or the Bitcoin mining sphere.
Yeah, great question. So I actually love speaking to other creators that are trying to grow. I meet with people that I now call my friends very often that are trying to grow their channel and just went another perspective. And I still treat my channel like I'm a small, like I still get out. I still reach out. There's many individuals I talk to in the space. Your friend Andy, Seb Heslow, that I talk to almost daily. And a lot of our conversation is just about YouTube, about the algorithm changes we're seeing, about the trends we're seeing, what works and what doesn't work. And I'll be honest, most people fail on YouTube, and it might not be because of something they're doing. YouTube is very difficult. And a lot of it actually comes into timing. I was very lucky. I started a channel with an iPhone, as we talked about, and 3 months later, I had 5,000 subs. I did nothing special. I was just a guy filming things that people were after, and the timing was perfect. There was high demand. That demand isn't there anymore with crypto mining, especially with home mining, because it's not as easy to get into. You can't take any piece of hardware, plug it in, people watch it, and you're making money. With crypto right now, it's tough to appeal. The audience is very small now versus where it used to be. And a lot of that has to do with most GPU miners have exited the scene. And those that are here, it's a small, tight-knit community. I mean, I recognize the same people commenting on my YouTube videos from then, but every single video I drop, it's like, man, it's the same audience. And there still is growth. There's still a targeted growth. My YouTube channel, I target about 100 subscriber growth a day. And that's nothing crazy back to when then it was 1,000 or more. Like, it was crazy. And so, with YouTubers right now, I always recommend people get started yesterday. Like, if you're thinking about it, get started yesterday. But the biggest recommendation I make to creators is set yourself apart. And what I mean by that is, when I started, I looked and saw there was a small group of individuals doing content on 4 gigabit, very inexpensive graphics cards that you could pick up for $100 versus several hundred or $1,000 cards. And that was my niche. That was my entry. And I filled a void that wasn't there. And that's what I recommend to creators now is like, is the YouTube content creation scene for crypto mining saturated? No, it's actually really small. I mean, I talk with all these different creators within kind of our circles all the time, multiple times a week. But there's new people coming in all the time. Great individual. Modern Mining is an individual on YouTube that has very much almost picked up that torch of like, hey, I'm starting out as a small home miner. Here's my journey. And I watch his channel and I'm like, I see myself all the time. And I love it. I love it that someone else has kind of taken that place out there.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it's interesting. I wanted to ask about, there's this trend in like ASICs mining or in Caspa mining Caspa is an ASIC, but like these bigger miners where they're producing so much heat that home miners are trying to utilize that heat for different strategies. Have you like made any content on that or thought about that much? Because I've heard from several people that that's kind of a thing.
Yeah, heat management as a home miner is a massive challenge, and once you can really master it, and there is no book or a game plan for this. Like, it is very much trial and error. And I highly recommend it using heat from these miners. I actually use some miners. They're called Jazz miners. And they're Ethereum Classic miners. Right now, I actually have them on a coin called Octaspace. Octaspace is a well-known company that is growing out there. Behind that, I place them throughout my house. They're quiet. They're silent. They're wireless. And they put off just enough heat that you don't have to run your heater in the winter, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
You can run it off a 110, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of small home box miners that you can pick up that you can put in place that aren't the most profitable, but they'll help to offset some of that cost. And hey, you get to mine crypto at the same time. That's really the direction a lot of these have taken. When it comes down to your full size ASICs, man, you're talking like full out getting into, kind of that crafters mentality where people are taking full size ASICs that they've outfitted in their garage and they're putting, like I have, a shroud, removing those high RPM screeching fans, putting shrouds and inline fans on them so they're quieter. That's actually how I run all of my ASICs. And then they're taking that and they're ducting that directly into their house. Some people have done that with greenhouses. There's this huge up and coming movement with greenhouses and approaching greenhouses to go, hey, I can help offset this a little bit. We can split some of this Bitcoin. So there's a lot of opportunity there because a lot of greenhouses actually, now we're going down a rabbit hole, but a lot of greenhouses are on a farm electric rate, an ag electric rate, which is very competitive. And they don't even realize what they have. They're just like, I got to plug these heaters in each of, or furnaces in each of my greenhouses. And it's like, hey, why don't you turn that off? Let me put a Bitcoin miner in there. And, let's kind of work out a deal. So there's actually a greenhouse. There's a greenhouse company nearby. And that's always been, every time I pass it, I'm like, I really should stop.
You gotta find someone who has one of those guys' numbers and make a video, direct it right there, be like, you send this to them, bro. Send this to them. I'll give you 20% commission, if you get them signed.
Wait, So is the electricity more subsidized than the heat they're being provided?
I mean, your biggest operating cost across the board is electricity, and that's where you need to look at it and kind of play that game, because a lot of these furnaces that like greenhouses are using and such, even businesses locally, like there's a whole business model here, but a lot of these furnaces just aren't efficient, especially old greenhouse. You got to think of it like these old greenhouses, like these guys run these things for 20 plus years, keep them together with duct tape and spit. And so there's definitely an opportunity there. At the same time of repurposing heat, like we're talking about, there is a huge movement right now as well for repurposing your ASIC miners, even one for heating pools. And that's becoming more and more popular. To take that to the next level, Bitmain rolled out a massive cabinet that can integrate in with hotels and such. So you can have a cabinet full of ASIC miners on hydro that is helping to heat hotel water supply. You got to imagine that's a huge, massive operating cost as well. So all of this is definitely rolling out, but it's starting at your home miner level with just putting a miner in a bedroom to heat that bedroom versus actually running your heater.
Yeah. It's definitely something that's super interesting. And I wanted to go back to something you said. You mentioned Octaspace. Is that the same as Octa? Is that like a DeepIn AI thing? I know you were mentioning.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
right. Yep.
So
exactly.
How do you use the Ethereum miner? What role does it play in the process?
Sure. So Jazz miners are, as I said, they're silent. They're quiet and they run on wireless, which is awesome. But something that they do is they run two algorithms, ETH hash or ETC hash. So Ethereum, what we traditionally know as Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, but those are just algorithms. Believe it or not, there are boatloads of coin and projects that run and mine off of those algorithms. So even though you hear ETH hash, we instantly think Ethereum, right? Well, Octaspace actually runs on the ETH hash algorithm. So if your miner, that's something to keep in mind for your audience. You buy a miner, traditionally, it's not dedicated to one coin. It may have a primary coin that is most popular that people use, but Octaspace is one that piggybacks off of that. Nothing to do with Ethereum. It just uses the ETH hash algorithm and is within that space as well.
Gotcha. So it uses that algorithm to keep the blockchain running. And then my understanding is that it's AI DeepIn. So isn't that another aspect, another way to earn money if you were?
Yeah. So Octaspace is very much almost like a rendering marketplace,
right?
Is how that works. And they've actually ventured into decentralized VPNs as well. So Octaspace is kind of into a little bit of everything that is out there right now. So there's lots of opportunity. The miners are actually helping to support the actual decentralization of the blockchain for Octaspace is how that works, taking care of all your transactions and such like that. And then Octaspace has a whole nother world in it, as we talked about with the VPN and rendering within their marketplace as well, where you can utilize GPU mining hardware, like those GPU mining rigs, to actually be put on their marketplace as well.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Because I've heard a lot about that. I just wanted to zoom in on that
Sure.
for a second. But yeah, I don't know.
Very nice. Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, you're in this Bitcoin mining world. It's pretty deep. Rabbit holes go pretty deep. The communities are very cool, though. I am curious where your conviction comes from to remain in this industry, to fight through the bear markets, to fight through especially times when certain aspects of the industry become not so profitable. It can even get toxic at certain points. Where do you feel the conviction? Is it in Bitcoin? Is it in the miners? Is it in something entirely separate? Yourself as an entrepreneur, or where do you think you find that anchor?
So I think money is a driving factor. I think we can all agree upon. And so crypto has actually done great success for me and my family of helping to take us out of debt, which has been a great personal factor for that. And that's also paired up with YouTube as well. I treat YouTube as a business entirely. I have fully registered business around it and everything. Operating expenses. I mean, my electric bill's $3,800 a month with this setup. So, but my profits are, my revenue coming in is right around 7,000. So it definitely works out in that regard. As a home miner, that's worlds of difference from where I was years ago. But my driving factor there is very much a lot like the technology side has always interested me. That's where my background is in. So I continue to gravitate towards that. It's fun. It's profitable. Now, granted, the YouTube channel has made it profitable. Standing alone as a home miner, it's definitely challenging. And I mean, I've seen a lot of good people come and go out of the crypto mining scene because the profits just weren't there. I think what really drives me, though, is when I've been mining a coin for a long time and then it has a massive pump. And this coin that you didn't expect. So, a great one for me was Chlor.ai. And it's an AI marketplace backing to it with a blockchain connected. And got into it early, mined it early, had a massive pump. And when those massive pumps occur, and you can't predict these things, this is crypto, people, and a massive pump occurs, and now and then you go ahead and take your profits. That moment is like, you're like, wow, all right, this is awesome. And as I said before, I'm not putting that right into my pocket. I'm literally taking those and rolling that into new hardware, new miners, new technology. So I think that's what really is my driving factor, is those moments where like it pays off. But the hard part is like there's no trust me, those that come into this space from the traditional finance industry and are like trying to calculate this out or plan it out or map it out, you might as well take your 3-year-old kid and draw out a crayon on a sheet, and that's really your plan, because there is no roadmap for this. There is no way to predict this at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, crypto. I mean, so for me, I'm more of a Bitcoin centric person. I just came into this because I heard Michael Saylor talking about the engineering analogies between Bitcoin and like thermodynamics or Bitcoin and physics. And I was like, wow, like I'm realizing that my money in the fiat system is depreciating in a way that I can't measure. And so that's why I was into Bitcoin. I was wondering, you're a miner, hobbyist miner, but do you look at Bitcoin or other proof of work systems and say that could be the future of monetary technology?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think I mentioned Bitcoin much in this conversation, but most of my wins will roll up into Bitcoin. So like I will very much, I'm not really taking out of pocket, but at the end of the day, all these little, and that's the thing that I think people with, all about orange pilled. All right. I get it 100%. But a lot of these people put on blinders for Bitcoin and that's it. And it's like, I get it. However, you have other on-ramps to Bitcoin that are out there with these altcoins that are out there that you're totally missing out on. Great opportunities to 10x before Bitcoin's going to 10x. Let's be realistic here. And so, but for me, it doesn't matter how I get there. I'm still getting to Bitcoin in one avenue or another. And that's something I even preach to Bitcoin miners out there that are so orange pilled that they don't even look at other ASICs out there and other mining opportunities. And it's like, hey, you could take a script miner that traditionally mines, Doge, gets paid out in Doge or Litecoin, or you could take like a Caspa miner and you could very much get paid out in Bitcoin with those. They're just mining those other algorithms. And when you start to talk with these people, most people are like, wait, I didn't even know you could do that.
Paid out in
Like,
Bitcoin means you swap them?
Correct. So there's actually a lot of platforms out there that allow you pools. There's a lot of pools out there as a miner that you mine that altcoin to, and then it flips it, and you can pick to get paid out in Bitcoin.
Right.
And if you guys follow, I mean, I know you guys have had loads of Bitcoin miners on your different medias and channels. A lot of them are so focused on Bitcoin, and they're like, oh man, Bitcoin mining is down, profitability is down on these miners, network hash rate is through the roof. HUD 8 just opened another facility, whatever they're saying. Where they kind of lose track of it is like, you don't need to have a Bitcoin miner to earn Bitcoin. And people go, wait, what? And it's like, yep. There's a lot of creative platforms out there that make it simple and easy. NiceHash is one that I'm a huge fan of that I've been using for a long time. I'm actually flying out to their NiceHash X event next month out in Slovenia that they're hosting. And they are a fantastic platform where I have taken my altcoin miners and put them on NiceHash and back and forth based off of where my targets are and just earn Bitcoin. And a lot of the times, my altcoin miners over the last bear market have been more profitable than my Bitcoin miners.
Yeah, I mean, Caspa was broken, like unbelievably profitable for a while, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wait, so in that same direction of the conversation, we do host Caspa Spaces, and our main co-host, his name's Christian. So shout out to Christian. I think we might have had you on one earlier.
I don't think Caspa. Haven't been on Caspa.
Okay, I
would love to meet, but would love to be. Hit me up
for it though. I definitely have sent you.
Okay.
But the only reason why I bring it up is because I've come to the understanding that it's in some cases incentivized to solo mine on Caspa because of the large number of blocks coming through, and so you don't pay the fee, but you also have like a higher probability of catching blocks. And with some of these KRCs that are coming out, there's even more larger rewards in there. Is that something you've kind of covered, and could you provide some like color on that?
Yeah, definitely. So Caspa has been a project that's been around for a little while now, nowhere near where Bitcoin is. And Caspa has been fantastic because of, it's kind of it originally started as, you could GPU mine it, which was great. So that was something I did. It was actually dual mined it between GPU mining with Caspa and another project called Ergo. And that was when Caspa was fractions of a penny. And you don't know what you don't. And you're building a moon bag of it. And as time has progressed, Caspa has gone up, has got the attention of FPGA miners and ASIC miners, especially over the last year. There's been almost 30 Caspa miners released in the industry, and almost caused that network to get very oversaturated. So a lot of Caspa miners that started out at $100 a day are down to $5 a day. So that's a tough investment. That's a tough investment to make. But on that note, what has happened over the last several weeks is KRC20 has launched. It's pretty much just a layer. Imagine Caspa with a layer on top of it called KRC20. And what that has allowed people to do is develop a lot of their projects on top of KRC20. And we've seen a ton of other tokens and NFTs that have come into the space. And during that launch, when all of these projects are on KRC20, which is on Caspa, hello miners are there to validate these transactions. So, when one of you sends an NFT or a token from one person to another, they need miners to validate those transactions. So Caspa miners like myself got a huge boost for about a week in our mining rewards. And even those that were solo mining, you saw block rewards with solo mining that were like 85 Caspa. The largest one I heard on record was 13,000. So you went from an 85 block reward to 13,000, which was absolutely massive. Rare. I didn't hit any of those, but I did have some miners on solo mining. Now, a lot of that has died down. That a lot of that profitability has died down. The transactions have died down. But what that does is that sets Caspa up now for the future for more projects, very similar to Ethereum in the early days, to come along and build right on top of Caspa, which is great.
Wow. Yeah, definitely is. I did have another kind of thought that came about. And so it came from actually one of our Spaces guys, Dr. Detroit. So shout out there. He was really excited to he was DMing us these different mempool descriptions. He was really excited. And so there's this new Bitcoin. It uses SHA-256. It's called Fractal. Have you heard of Fractal? So have you heard of the merge mining that's been going on there? Because apparently it's up to like over close to 300 exahash on SHA-256. So do you have any thoughts on that? Because I mean, that's a substantial amount of exahash.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with it. I heard about it a few weeks back, actually. I have not dabbled into it at all. It's been something very, very new, because like SHA-256 has been very traditionally like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, and there's a few other very small ones out there. But yeah, I mean, people are looking at any opportunity to repurpose old Bitcoin miners. And if there's I mean, there's tons of hardware sitting out there. The Bitcoin industry, if you look at the release of Bitcoin miners, SHA-256 miners over the last 2 years, it's been insane, absolutely insane. There's so many submodels, and the hash rate, last bull run 100 terahash was pretty good. Now we're up to over 234 terahash. So a lot of people are taking these SHA-256 older miners and looking for opportunities to stack some moon bags, just like you said, of these other coins that are out there with kind of the fractal opportunity. Have I done it? No, but I think it's always a good spec mine play to do for sure.
Yeah. Have you heard of merge mining, where you take your hash from from one miner and then you put it onto 2 blockchains? Have you heard of that or done any concepts?
So over the last 3 years, something that's been super popular is script mining, which is merge mining. Very more specifically, getting paid out in Dogecoin and a smaller percentage in Litecoin. So if you have like an L7, or Bitmain released a brand new L9, or you have any of these smaller box miners, they're script miners, which is merge mining, is how that works. So it does pay you out in multiple coins. That script mining has been very successful. I wish I knew now what I knew 3 years ago, just like where things ended up, because I would have bought more and more script miners and diversified much more, because that has been, honestly, I mean, right now when I look at like my makeup, you got Bitcoin miners, you got script miners, which participates in that merge mining, and Caspa miners are a very big chunk of my ASIC miner fleet.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, good to know, because glad to talk to people who are really doing it and get some clarity on that for sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how the Caspa ecosystem evolves as well, Gabriel, because those spaces pull some crazy numbers.
Yeah.
Like, I need to tune into more of them, but I could see that ecosystem doing pretty well. So we'll see what happens. You said something earlier, Hobbyist, about the mining. This mining adventure has now paid off debt, and so you're in a position where I was very similar, month to month, like scrape by for a long time. This industry also gave me the ability to move out of the month to month, which has been literally the best thing ever. I can't even explain how. I mean, it just sucks. Being in debt was terrible. I think I got painfully numb to it at a certain point, that I was just like, well, I'm just always going to be perpetually 20 grand in debt until something comes along. That ended up in 2024 being a couple of meme coin rallies, and I wrote a couple up and actually pulled profits for once in my life and said I need to pay something off. So I was able to pull out literally with a couple of meme coin plays. And then over the last year or so, I've been able to transition and be a lot better with my money. But talk to me a little bit about some of the lessons you learned from being in debt. I think at that point you said you were with family in debt as well. Just kind of that experience, and then pulling yourself out of it, and now where you guys are at today.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, that is one challenge. I think you made a really good point there of being numb to debt. And I think one thing that very much I've learned over the last few years is, and people hate me for saying this, but like people, the way that, and this is just me, but like I work a traditional 9 to 5. It's a career that I work every day. I have for the last 10 years in my current position that I'm in, but like I'm done with that job, and then this job picks up. So like working one job, we all know in the current economy is a thing of the past in order to be able to afford things. And there's no getting out of debt. There's no actually making true money without actually picking up side hustles and side jobs and things like that. I mean, for me, I mean, I've gone as far as, I have my day-to-day job. I have YouTube. I run my own crypto mining. I do full consulting. I mean, literally, I had a consulting call this morning at 1:30 a.m. Like, I do full consulting calls within the industry. So for those of you that are like, I just want to work my 9 to 5 and come home, sit on the couch, drink my beer, and watch football, you'll stay poor. And that's a very strong statement to make, but unfortunately, it's something that I have learned is like the only way to actually get out of this is to get up out of your seat and start doing odd and end side jobs, a few extra bucks here and there. If you don't have to go crypto, it could be anything, but I highly recommend it because you just can't get ahead in today's world. That mindset is unfortunately for an older generation at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot younger than you all, but
whoa, what are you saying? What are you saying?
Well, no, like I'm just saying I don't have the experience of like.
Okay, well said.
That's what I mean.
Very good recovery.
Yeah, I don't have the experience.
This is why you work for Wolf, you know. It's not we're clutch like that.
Yeah,
that's right. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm just saying, like it's amazing that you identify that you have to work really hard, and it's great that it's paid off. For me, I look at like my future and thinking of like for the thing with Bitcoin is it's a radical form of property rights. Like no one can take it from you, and they can't tax it while you have it. So I look at that and I think that Bitcoin or other proof of work systems that are real systems, not abstracted systems that can be manipulated, they need to take hold because it's ridiculous that you have to be working so many hours and also for me, like I said, much younger, but like uncertainty as to like, well, if I do this, will this pay off? There's no way to like price out your future. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts, but that's great that that's worked out.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people now in today's world, we're looking for something new and different, especially with younger generations just coming out of high school, just going through college, just getting out of college. It's like it's funny if you think about, but they've known of Bitcoin for years now. Maybe not early adopters, but they've known of that opportunity of kind of decentralized currency out there that isn't regulated by any certain government. And people have seen the way the economy has gone over the last 10 years, and they want something different. And a digital asset has always felt so far out of reach. But now, as you said, people are getting more and more attracted to Bitcoin. I mean, that's what attracted me to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency directly at first was like, wow, this is a decentralized currency out there that no one government runs. No one has the ability to directly monitor it. It's not attached to any one individual. I was like, this is really cool technology. And that's kind of why I was very much interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, predetermined monetary policy. So at any given time, you can calculate the inflation rate at any time. And there's no obfuscation between how much the government's printing and what you feel as inflation and CPI,
Correct.
Which what does that even mean? Feel inflation? That's preposterous. But so there's a lot of cool things. And I mean, mining is really interesting. Yeah, definitely.
I have a couple questions here. These are more I guess, I don't know. I'm not able to get into the nitty gritty as much as Gabriel, which is why these conversations are fascinating. Gabriel asks some like super deep question about like the code within Bitcoin, and I'll be like, so like, what's the day in your life? But that is my question. I am very curious on a day in your life, what it looks like, or maybe just like a broad week of your life. Like these are the kind of things I'm doing. I'm usually waking up around this time. I usually do this. I go here. Like just a couple of those specifics I think would be really interesting for people to hear about, because you're doing 3 separate full things right now. And how you balance all that.
Yeah. So very chaotic, very busy, but very organized. Every night I'm looking at my schedule for the next day, and literally almost every hour is accounted for. And that drives some people absolutely insane. Some people I know don't even have calendars. And I'm like, it's just crazy to me. Yeah, but I feel like I'm not being productive if I'm not doing something of value during that time period. But when I relax and crash, I relax and crash. And I turn off technology. I want a beer by the ocean and not to be interrupted. So it is very much so. But so most of my mornings start around 7 a.m. And very much are sitting down right here, drinking coffee, catching up on emails, catching up on social media, other items like that. Planning out the rest of my day, as time goes on. I am working that kind of traditional 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 job. But throughout that, taking opportunities like this over my lunchtime to sit down and chat with you guys, or host a live stream, or go out to a shed and work on a miner, or whatever that may be. And then end of the day, 5, 6 o'clock comes around. It's traditionally dinner with my family, taking kids to sports, and then getting the kids to bed. And then kind of job 2 kind of kicks in, and it's, creating YouTube content, joining live streams myself, just like this, working over at my ASIC shed or one of my miners. And that kind of continues, content creation, man. It's tough, recording, I'm editing myself. The only thing I've offloaded so far is thumbnail creation. I did that about 1.5 years ago, and that was a huge blessing.
I agree.
Your friend Andy, I've seen him in chat. He's still pushing me to offload my editing to somebody, but I'm very much like, nobody could do it the way I want it. I'm so particular. So we'll see. At some point I'll need to do that. Because that does take up hours of time. And sometimes editing takes longer than recording the video.
Definitely.
I try to get to bed by midnight every night, but it ends up being mostly 1 or 2 a.m. I do sprinkle in consulting. Consulting is anytime between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. that I'll do that. And the reason I offer that is because I have a lot of people. Last night, coolest conversation I had was a group of guys looking to start Bitcoin mining in the Congo. And I had a conversation with them last night. They were literally, they joined the consulting call from the Congo. And so like a lot of those opportunities, they have to pick up those really weird hours. And so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's fun. Like, that's awesome to me to be able to educate somebody. I love the consulting side of things. But just like we said, like tomorrow, 6 a.m., I'm up flying out to Missouri to do a Bitcoin mining farm tour. And I've partnered up with mining farms and hosting facilities. I'll provide content, mining farm tours, exposure, and in return, we'll work out a business relationship with each other. So I'm always looking for the next big thing, and I'll share that on my YouTube channel and that experience as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, what would you say how technically difficult would you say it is to get into the mining side of things? Or like, is there a big difference between GPU mining versus like ASICs, or is it just the risk profile of this is more expensive equipment, less expensive equipment?
GPU mining is definitely more complicated. If you're not within the tech space, building GPU mining rigs, tinkering, configuring, troubleshooting, massive one. As my phone's popping off there. Those are definitely, there's definitely a big difference. When you look at GPU mining versus ASIC mining is much easier. Even if you start out with a small box miner, you're setting it up. It's like 3 fields and you're off and mining and you're good to go. And once you set up one ASIC miner, it literally every other ASIC miner is pretty much the same, which is really, really nice. But on the GPU mining side, there's a little bit more reward to, you built a whole rig, you get it up and running, you get the operating system installed. Now you got to configure it. I mean, GPU mining is great because it's very versatile. You can mine almost anything that's proof of work that is within obtainable with a GPU. So yeah, it really depends on where your craft is at, your knowledge and your background.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess that makes a lot of sense because GPUs are designed in a way to be more adaptive to whatever you want to configure them with, whereas ASICs are just plug and play, really. I mean, they're running one algorithm designed to be that way. So yeah, that's interesting. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I was going to say we've got some people in the chat here. If you're watching on X and you haven't already, please repost the stream, whether you're watching on Wolf or my personal. Definitely repost the stream. We really, really appreciate it, especially for people who can't make the live stream. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, do all the things. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Got a few minutes left here. I know I have some rapid fire Q&A questions I want to get to as well. But but before I do want to hear a little bit about what you were potentially like in the high school, college days. Were you entrepreneurial in spirit? Was this like generally a new venture? Like for me, I was probably not entrepreneurial until like I had to be, because I was like, crap, I'm not making enough money to survive. I have enough money, but I want to retire. I got to learn finances. So it wasn't really until 2021 until my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, thanks to Gary Vee. So I am curious on what your earlier years were like in the high school, college days.
Yeah. So for me, I always worked. I started working when I was 14 years old as a paper boy. And my parents always encouraged me to have a job. So I don't know anything different since I was 14 versus a lot of individuals nowadays graduate high school and have never worked for, an actual company. And so I always had jobs. I was also involved in extracurricular activities like wrestling. I was in wrestling for 12 years growing up. And so for me, I would literally, and maybe this is why it's rolled into today, I would go to school every day. I would go to wrestling practice. I would then leave wrestling practice and go to my job. And then I would get home late at night and I would try to find time for homework. I was never a good student. One, I didn't have time, and two, traditional education just was never my thing. I was a doer. I was a hands-on doer on everything that I learned. Maybe that's why I've gravitated so closely to crypto mining. But yeah, I was always very, very busy, growing up during that time period. But I did start my own IT consulting company, just small stuff, mom and pop places and stuff like that. But I also did that on the side to bring in extra cash flow to purchase my first car, to maintain that with insurance, everything like that. So yeah, I think even middle school and high school, I was still go finding opportunities to make money.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Very nice. How about you, Gabriel? What were you like in high school, man? Were you out here putting in work in motion?
I was definitely a nerd. Science. And I played soccer, but that was pretty much it. Yeah.
The best sport ever.
Very cool.
Yeah, true. You too, babe.
All right. Gabriel, I didn't know if you had any more technical questions. I've got some rapid fire Q&A style things.
Sure.
But they're probably pretty off topic.
Let's go for Q&A. Let's go for Q&A.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Yeah. And if anyone else is watching, you have a certain question, definitely drop it in the chat. First question, tattoos. You got any?
I do. I have one on my back shoulder. I got it in my senior year of college.
Very nice. Okay, very cool. I got my sophomore year. I got
nothing to do with crypto at all. Because at that point, I was not. Crypto was so far fetched when I was in college.
It's funny. I talked about getting like a Bitcoin tattoo, and I had a few people message me and they said it was a bad idea. I was like, why? They were just like, you don't want people to know that you like hold Bitcoin or like you have Bitcoin. I was like, oh, I never really thought about that. Like, if the world goes, proper dystopian, are they going to take us in? Like, oh, those are the guys who hold Bitcoin. We got to watch out for them.
Most of the clothing I own is literally something to do with crypto. Like, it has a logo on it. Like, I don't really own anything else, So yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Thoughts on, like I mentioned, a dystopian future, or do we come back down to source center? What does the next few years look like? Are you generally positive and optimistic towards it? Are you pessimistic, therefore you're preparing for it? How do you think about these things?
Ask me after the first week in November, and then I think I'll have a better answer for you then.
That's a really good answer. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is a massive key factor, I think, for not only our economy, but the US, as well as the direction of crypto, where that goes. It's crazy to think that like so much hinges on one election. Granted, people may say this every election cycle, but yeah, we'll see. So ask me at the end of that first week in November.
I mean, I don't know. I think this one's pretty consequential compared to last, so I think that's a good analysis. And I really like Hobbyist your answer because, like, in the interim term, I totally agree with you that we need certain leadership to be coming on scene and just doing something. Like literally, the doing. You got to do something. Can't just talk about this or talk about that. Something has. I mean, it's not good if you look at the fiscal situation. If you look at where things are going with the economy, so something has to be done. But in the long term, I'm really a big believer in we gotta decentralize countries and such because like we're in a conflict with Russia right now, and it's like, why are we in a conflict with Russia? I mean, why are we almost getting in a conflict with another big superpower? It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, just stop it. Like, let's get. Like, break up the states, break up the provinces, whatever. Just
sure.
Wow.
Yeah, the not to get too far in the weeds, but yeah, the U.S. International policy has become very gray over the last 4 years. So I think it'll be very much. We'll see where the direction goes. The next few weeks will be a huge determining factor.
Absolutely.
Definitely. All right. Any guilty pleasures from the hobbyists? Anything that you used to particularly unwind? Things that you love? Shows, movies.
I don't get a chance to watch a lot of TV shows because time doesn't permit. I love movies. I am that guy that is like, hey, like I'll say to my wife, like kids are in bed and it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I'll be like, I'm going to the movies by myself. Like, I don't want anybody around. I just want to eat fat kid food and sit there and watch a movie. And that's how I've almost watched all of the Marvel movies over the years, is like, late at night, IMAX, away from the world. And as I said, when I detach myself, I truly do. Outside of that, I do love gaming. I've been gaming for years. Started very early on with the original StarCraft in middle school, as well as Counter-Strike 1.5. And I gotta go through waves where I have time for it. I'll find little bits of time, but that'll very much be like my deep. Like I'll be like, oh, I got a meeting here in an hour, like a consulting call. I have an hour. I'm just gonna play a video game. Like I just need to step away from the world for 1 hour. So yeah, I'd say between movies by myself and some video games, those are kind of my guilty pleasures for sure.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Okay, a couple last questions here. Do you have any reoccurring dreams?
You got some weird questions. No, not necessarily. I'm not one of those. I'll be honest. I don't remember a lot of my dreams, but I'm also the guy that like I work so hard that my head hits the pillow and I'm out in 30 seconds. And my wife hates it because it takes her forever to fall asleep. And I can sleep anywhere. Like I'll work and I go upstairs and lay down on the couch and I'm out in 30 seconds. Like, and maybe that's just because I'm not getting enough sleep. I do take Sundays off though. I didn't mention that earlier. Okay. Sundays I do nothing related to crypto, to mining, to emails, to content creation. Something I started a few months back, and it's been very healthy. Go to bed early, more time with my family. That has worked out really, really great. I've just needed just one day away from it all, and that's worked out really, really well. So I highly recommend it for people that are into the grind. Is like just take one day and it's nothing, like at all.
Yeah. And
now, granted, I do a lot of home projects then because I never get to those things any other day. But it's still so enjoyable to be able to work on those versus like, oh, this ASIC miner's down or this rig isn't working or definitely. Yeah.
Well, to clarify, do you still have a 9-to-5 or are you full-time YouTube crypto?
No, I still have a 9-to-5, 100%. I still do that. The hard part for me is pulling that trigger. And I have other content creators that hit me up that are like, dude, you could step away from that anytime now. And I could. And that is something that is always on my mind and things I think about of like reallocating your time to be the most profitable. And it's like, okay, if I stepped away from my full-time career, how much time does that unlock for me to now be able to double down and be able to put out content? I'm only putting out 2 videos a week right now, but now maybe I could do 4 videos a week. But I do find other sources. I'm every day has a Twitter post, every day has some type of YouTube post or poll, or a short or a video. So I am filling up content every day of the week. But that is something that's constantly on my mind. The challenge for me very much is, crypto's always been so volatile, especially during the bear market, where it's like, man, if it's a gamble, and that's a massive gamble to take, especially when I have a family of 5 and I'm paying for insurance. My wife homeschools my kids, so she's not working. It would be a totally different story if she had a full-time career outside of the home, because then I could take that step. But as of right now, it is not an option. I'm thinking I'll reevaluate it as we step into the next bull run and just be like, all right, we're doing good. I could take that leap, because taking that leap and that gamble during a bear market is tough versus if I double where I am in the bull run, then it's like, okay, I at least have time to do that extra work, to see if it's worth it, to put, hire an editor, all those things. So as of right now, it is tough. I'd love to be able to get into crypto and content creation full time. I think about it every day. I'll be honest with you. It is an internal battle that I definitely face, but it's something where I'm trying to not be selfish about it and be very strategic about it.
Yeah. That's a great answer.
Yeah. Respect. Well, listen, this will be the last question. Do you have any practical advice for someone who's trying to get into the mining world, or the YouTube world, or both? Do you have any practical advice for someone like that?
First thing I'll say is, if you're getting in as a home miner, don't expect to get rich. Like, people instantly see that this is not a pyramid scheme. Mining is not a short-term play. The big recommendation I make is reevaluate if you're looking to get into mining and you want to liquidate your Bitcoin or your crypto every day or every week or every month, because that's not really how you're going to make money. That's literally just, that's a tough one for people to really understand. They get into it and they're like, all right, I want to cash out. I've been mining for a month. How do I make my money? And it's like, man, you have such blinders on. So for people getting into it, look at this more as a medium to long-term play. You'll be much more successful. You have much more opportunities to liquidate. And if you are going to liquidate, I always tell people 50%, so that you're always continuing to build your bag for that really big day where logically it does make sense, hopefully during the height of the bull run.
Heck yeah.
Definitely. Right on, right on. Gabriel, do you have any last burning questions?
No, I think this was a great segment here, a great podcast. Learned a lot. It was great to speak with you, hobbyist.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I love these things. Feel free to hit me up in the future.
Dude, awesome. You're a legend. Guys, if you're watching this show right now, if you're on X, you should be able to just click his thing. He should be tagged in there. Definitely give him a follow and go to his YouTube channel. He's also got a website. If you're trying to work with him, schedule a call with him or whatever it is, I'm sure he's got tons of opportunities for that. Definitely hit him up for it. Hobbyist man, yeah, like Gabriel just said, thanks for your time. This is an awesome conversation. Is there anyone you want to shout out before we wrap?
No, not at all. Other than that, I mean, you know, I've name dropped a lot of people during this that have helped me along the way, or other content creators. Please go check them out. Absolutely. Yeah, as you said, everything, I kind of have a landing page. Everything's over at TheHobbyistMiner.io. Believe it or not, it's actually hosted on Flux, which is a Bitcoin blockchain. So nice. It's actually a whole decentralized website, which is pretty cool. So go over and check it out. There's some cool stuff over there.
Nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right on, guys. Have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you on the spaces. Take care.